I'm not left-handed, but I have friends and family who are, which means I can say left-handed slurs like leftoid or lefty loosey. But while talking to my leftist friend, they let this slip. Yeah, because right-handedness is so common in gaming, it feels weird to use my left hand for certain things sometimes. I am going to use you for content. You see, in my hit video that everyone loves, Why Representation Matters, I talk about representation that matters. One of my points was on groups who need representation because they are just invisible, not even in the hemisphere of discussion, but it's harder to champion them because they're not talked about. And this was a visceral moment where I felt myself get pulled from the right-handed matrix. The lie's big right hand used to obscure my vision was lifted away, and I realized, yeah, wait a moment, where the fuck are all the left-handed people in games? But I was like, surely people have probably already discussed this topic to death. Surely, undoubtedly, 100%. There were 2 videos in all of YouTube, maybe 3. So while left-handed people aren't marginalized, at least not anymore, it makes me sad that an entire type of person is just invisible in the media we all love and enjoy. So if you're a righty-tighty who wants to be enlightened to the truth of the lefty blights, a lefty Lucy who wants to point at the screen and go, yeah, woo, how dare they, I love you, Radshad the Mad Lad, and to some of you, your dad, or your ambidextrous lambisextrous who has no strong opinions one way or the other, come join me as we explore left-handedness, or the lack thereof, in video games.
But Radshad, the Mad Lad, and some of you, your dad,
I hear you say in your whiny, tighty-whitey wearing voice.
Surely the reason left-handed people are less represented in games is because it costs more to create additional animations.
And to answer that, I say, foolish man, or woman, or them. I don't know what you are, but you are unequivocally a fool. Even ignoring the stupid shit game studios decide to focus their manpower on. How much does it, cost to, flip the animation? Like, watch this, your favorite first-person shooter, what if we just, boom, left-handed? Does it feel weird? Is it unnatural? Well, that's what left-handed people have to deal with the entire time, you cretin. Radshad says in his whiny bitch-ass voice. As loath as I am to say, Radshad is a fool. Before I started research for this video, this was my starting ponderance. Since then, it has developed to a new level of enlightenment. Much of this knowledge comes from the very in-depth video History of Handedness in Video Games, with a full stop. While I don't agree with much of the conclusions of this video, it goes over nearly every instance of handedness in games history. But what's important for us with first-person shooters is the fact that guns are primarily created with right-handed operating in mind. Because of this, guns have asymmetry, and if they are wielded in the left hand, they must be reloaded in a different way, such as a revolver cartridge popping out on the left or a lever being on the right. This means mirroring creates guns that don't exist and doesn't reflect the actual way to operate them with a left hand. But while this goes against the case for mirroring, this does actually remind us as righties that most tools in the world are oriented for the right hand. And being able to remind people of this fact through even something small like a reload animation is very cool. Even outside of this, mirroring can still be a good option for accessibility, as there is a more comfortable orientation of the screen for different people. And the original Counter-Strike's default option was the left side, as Min Lee, a developer and man of the left persuasion, wanted to show righties what it felt like living in a world where another's hands are the norm. Mildly odd. Also, the reference Counter-Strike video I found is peak old internet. I have to show you this. There was a lot more left-handed representation in earlier first-person shooters that have since been lost to time with modern gaming. Like the original Doom, which has a left-handed protagonist, but funnily enough, this wasn't on purpose. When taking the reference shots, the creator had to hold the camera in his right hand because it's oriented for right-hand use. even when left-handed people do get represented, it's because of the overprevalence of right-handed tools, an issue that is represented even in the firstest of person shooters. But Chad lad, the rad mad, and to some of you you're tad, surely there is no case in which this has meaningfully been used to reflect character as well as enhance the game.
That's very coincidence to a point that I have coming up. Wow, holy shit.
Resident Evil 5 is a game that I haven't played. But the video from before that talked about handedness in games with a full stop brought it up as a game that took handedness into account effectively. When you play split screen in Resident Evil 5, player 1 is the hunky Chris, while player 2 is the babely Shiva. To make each screen more distinct, or perhaps even to show how much of a dynamic duo these two are, Chris occupies the left side of the screen, while Shiva the right. This also reflects their handedness, Chris operating his weapons right-handed, while Shiva operates hers left-handed. Her animations aren't swapped either. Every single weapon she operates properly with her left hand. This is a perfect way to incorporate handedness meaningfully. It doesn't only make Shiva a unique character, but also shows very clearly the different ways left-handed people operate right-handed equipment, and ties into game mechanics and story as we subconsciously feel these two characters perfectly slot together. But what if we cannot bang? A horrid thought, I know. I'm keenly aware how much you want to bang. But without bang, we must return to or you'd expect it to be easier for RPGs, also known as roly-poly games, to just simply flip the animations. Swords are usually able to be operated perfectly fine whether in the right or left hand. Yet, they do left-handed people more dirty. World of Warcraft has the least excuses. Just swap the animation. You can't even say, oh, but hitboxes and stuff. Your game is just right-click and press buttons. But no, you call it the offhand. That's right, left-handed people. Your hands are off. Should have checked the expiry date. Are you expecting me to seriously believe in the whole world not a single Warcraft is left-handed? But Dark Souls, on the other hand, is actually already set up with a system where you can choose what hand to wield your weapons or shields in. Despite that, the left hand is functionally an offhand. You can't block using a shield in your right hand, and attacks with a weapon in your left hand aren't stringed together. But you can actually genuinely mix and match in Dark Souls 2. You can be a left-handed knight. Heck, there's even a weapon that is stronger in your left hand for lore reasons. Isn't that sick? It rewards you for engaging with the lore and reading into the warrior who wielded this blade before ye. Clearly, Dark Souls 2 is the only good Soulsborne ring game there is. Except, for some reason, there's a flat penalty to damage with any weapon in your left hand. This is literally discrimination against left-handed people, on par with women being paid less for the same work as their male counterparts. I mean, I get it. Women deserve less money. I mean, as they were testing, they probably found dual wielding did too much damage, but then they could have just nerfed the damage if you're dual wielding. And it's not even that the main character is canonically right-handed. In Dark Souls games, they open doors with their left hand even when it's inconvenient. There is no confirmed handedness to this character. Please, I just want to be a left-handed knight. Please. Legend of Zelda, the protagonist of which, Link of Zelda, wields his masterful sword with his left hand in nearly every game. Even in his first game, where sprites are mirrored, the promotional art depicts him as a lefty. This is because creator Shigeru Miyamoto is a left-handed himself. This is quite cool in my opinion. Having one of the most popular characters in gaming be left-handed reminds you that, oh yeah, you know, left-handed people exist. But when Nintendo was like, motion controls are the future, before they proceeded to be the past, they wanted to shoehorn this feature into the upcoming game, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. But for the development of Twilight Princess, they had Link as his canonical left-handed self. But for ease of use with the Wii Remote, they wanted to make Link of Zelda right-handed. So they flipped everything. The game world was mirrored for the Wii version, so you could play as a right-handed Link.
Did you know?
I bring this up because it's funny. Anyway, Skyward Sword was built from the ground up with motion controls and a right-handed Link in mind, which is where we get to this video. gaming as a lefty. In this video, our lefty responds to another video, a very unoriginal thing to do, who'd do that, cringe. But in this other video, they say there should have been accessibility options for left-handed people in Skyward Sword. In Lefty video, he responded that as a lefty who gamings, he found using the Wii nunchuck the opposite way was uncomfortable because he's so used to movement always being on the left hand and operating buttons being on the right. But this doesn't seem to come from any kind of deep down naturalism. Our great ancestors used to use the left hand for movement. This is generally the orientation of all game controllers, meaning you'd only get used to this if you were an avid epic gamer. Even keyboard is oriented around WASD, as your thumb naturally rests on the spacebar, while arrow keys, your thumb goes to the abyss. So it's not that it's more natural, it's that as a gamer, they've been conditioned to right-handed normalities. The video does, however, say when operating in VR, they needed to be left-hand oriented, otherwise it was near inoperable. So the normality of the movement on the left and interacting buttons on the right is something that isn't dictated by handedness. It's just a precedent for games. This being said, there should still be availability options that allow for the mirrored operation of games. My brother, a lefty himself, cannot play with WASD. He has to use the numpad. We shouldn't expect lefties to just have to get used to a right-hand world. And this video agrees.
The more options, the better. After all, gaming is already pretty alienating as it is.
And just because he's learned it one way, it doesn't mean taking left-handedness into account by developers isn't bad. But thankfully, the Wii is dead and buried, and Nintendo has given up on motion controls, meaning Link can return to being left-handed. Nintendo, why? I myself am not left-handed, but through looking at cases of left-handedness in games, I've learned a lot more about how left-handed people operate in our world, and it's been incredibly fascinating. Our world is varied, and it's nice to see the same diversity our world has reflected in our media, and it gives opportunity to learn about each other, even for those who are being represented, and seeing it acknowledged in media makes them feel less ignored, overlooked. Because frankly, left-handed people are overlooked constantly. But representation, whether it's something like an entire gay or a Brazilian, or something like, well, being left-handed, reminds us that the overgeneralization of media isn't what the world is like. That everyone has differences that make them, them. And my difference is being cooler than you. Lamau, get fucked.